Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. And if you're new, I'm sorry, but this video is going to be a little different than most of my other videos. So please check out the other ones about pet nutrition and pet food marketing and all that. But this one, when I used to do seminars in vet clinics and in vet tech schools and stuff, and whenever it was on wellness nutrition, just talking about pet food, I would always start by joking that there's three things you don't talk to family and friends about, especially family, and that's religion, politics, and pet food, because all three can be very controversial and can make things go bad really fast. Well, I'm going to break all those rules, and I'm going to break kind of my personal rule with this channel. My plan was always just stick to my main focus: pet food marketing versus pet nutrition. Today, I'm going to delve into all three of them: the politics, the religion, and pet food. So if that's going to turn you off, just get rid of the video now. Go watch some of my other videos that really deal with some really good stuff about pet food and pet nutrition, if that's your thing and your passion, like it is for me. For the rest of you that want to stick with me, again, this is going to get political and this is going to get religious, and I'm going to tie it into pet food because everything goes back to pet food, right? With the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. So let's go ahead and get started. And I tell you what, if you stay with me to the end of this video, I have no idea where this video is going to go. Total, no script, nothing. But if you stay with me, gotta just say done or yes or something at the end of the video that you actually stuck with me, because I know that's going to be just a very few of you. I could probably even name who you are already, but anyway, let's get started and see how this goes. So you all know this week in the United States, it's been a crazy week. I think it's September 19th, something like that. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk, of course, is the big news. And then the days that followed up to his memorial service just 2 days ago now. And I really, the same way I felt compelled to start this channel to share my passion and my experience with veterinary nutrition and dogs and cats and pet food and the what's been my life for over 3 decades now. I really felt compelled to make this video to talk about the other two things that you should never talk about: politics and religion. So we are going to talk about all three. And politics and religion, well, Charlie Kirk was one of those unique individuals. If you are not familiar with him, if you take any other advice I give you in this video, go check him out. Go to YouTube, look at his campus debates where he would get with college kids, and he would tell them, share your beliefs, share your feelings, share it. And he would have incredible dialogues with these young people. And I've been politically minded most of my life. I'll explain that in a minute. I've been into a relationship with God most of my life as well. I'll show that in a minute. But what I find with most issues like those three, pet food, religion, and politics, is you line up, you get tribal. You're over here on this side or you're over there. The left versus the right, religious versus atheist. Again, ingredientist versus nutritionist, right? You always have to pick a side, and most people on those two sides will come at each other pretty strongly. Now, I'm an Italian German from New Jersey. I grew up watching my parents argue over politics, religion, everything, and they were loud. Okay, those of you that are Italian know what I'm talking about, especially Eastern Italians. So that's what I grew up with. That's how we share our love, by yelling at each other. Okay, but the problem is that both sides don't really listen to each other. They just yell at each other. And you look at politics, it's the same way. You look at religions, it's the same way. You look at pet food, it's the same way. Here came this young man. He was only 31 when he was murdered But I think he started around 19 years old. Think about what you were doing at 19 versus this guy deciding that the country's going in the wrong direction. He wants to get back to God and family and country and the foundational institutions that built this country and made it great. The founding documents, the founding fathers, all that kind of stuff, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Bible. And here was a guy that talked religion and politics. You should never mix those two, right? We all know that. He would mix them on these college campuses with young college kids. I didn't go to college. Those of you that did, I was young and stupid at that age. Probably the worst people to have a good, intelligent dialogue with, but he would. And he showed them the same respect he would show the college professor and gave them time to share their views. And he was one of those rare people on the right, if you want to call that, or conservative, who actually wanted to have a dialogue. He would actually ask a lot of questions. And even with people, even some of the most, the trans kids or, the liberal atheists, whatever, some would get really nasty with him. And if that was me, I'd just get nasty back. That's kind of my nature, okay? But Charlie wouldn't be that way. He would somehow connect with them. And that's why he was so effective. And he shared the Declaration of Independence, the history of it, the founding fathers, and he brought these young people to understand, don't just be brainwashed by your liberal professors. Don't hate America or ignore the history and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to get into all those details. I can go on and on about the stuff he said that was so awesome. But what I'm getting at, the point was, he did it with respect, with compassion, empathy, and a lot of patience, even when they totally disagreed with what he was saying. And that's why I think he was so effective. And the left, and now there's liberals out there. I'm a conservative. There's liberals. Many of you probably are. I know my audience is older, so most of you are probably more conservative than liberal, but whatever, doesn't matter. The point is that there's a group, the leftists, as you want to call them, that really seem to hate everything about America. They hate the family unit. They hate our sovereignty. They want open borders. For some reason, they want a judicial system that doesn't punish criminals and allows them to get away with literally murder. I don't understand the leftists. I really don't. To me, it almost seems demon possessed. They're so far from what the Democratic Party was. My relatives, God rest their soul, if they were alive today, my liberal Uncle Bob and even my mom and some flaming liberals of the day back in the 70s, maybe 80s, they wouldn't believe the stuff now that the Democratic Party stands for. I find it hard to believe anybody can vote for a Democrat now with the way they believe. And, I'm just sharing my experience with what I've seen. And, there's so many examples I could bring up, but I'll bring up the one that really stuck to my mind. I'm a news junkie. I'm watching the news. This is many years ago now. And the Charlottesville event where President Trump is talking about the KKK had done a big protest in Charlottesville. And the night before, I remember watching the video, you see all the torches and they're marching in the dark. And it's, the KKK, just despicable human beings. Hard to believe they even exist anymore in this day and age. But they did their little rah-rah thing. Well, the next day in Charlottesville, there was a big protest at, I think it was a Robert E. Lee statue. It was definitely a Civil War statue. That was in the days they were ripping down statues everywhere to try to erase our history, which is the stupidest thing you could do. That's how you learn from history. But anyway, Trump was talking about the violence that had occurred there and said, this is really a shame. We shouldn't have violence here. There's good people on both sides. That was at the statue event, talking about the fact you have people that want these statues down for, in their mind, good reason. And you have people that want these statues to stay for good reason. There's good people on both sides. The media knew that. The media was sure of that. And I was listening to it live. I was listening to his speech live. And when it ended, sure enough, what happened was whoever the commentator was said, oh, he just said that the Ku Klux Klan are good people. And I was like, oh my goodness, what an idiot. Well, that'll be corrected. And sure enough, the media, that's all they talked about. Even President Biden said the reason he ran, the reason he chose to run for president was because he heard of what Trump had said at Charlottesville. That is the lying, that's the capacity of lying you can get from a Democrat at that high level, president, and along with a media that just despised Trump and I know despises everything that I hold near and true to my heart, my family, my God, the sovereignty of my country, the freedom of America, okay, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, okay. Here's a group of people that just literally despise that stuff. And that was back, years ago. You get to it today, then I look at, let's mutilate children and confuse them that they should be a boy or they should be a girl or they can choose or whatever. Just totally deny biology. Screw up their minds for what? For what? If that is not demon possessed, tell me what it is. When you can have a doctor stand in a congressional hearing and say right to the cameras, right to the Congress, that men can have babies, that's not a scientific debate. That's not a logical debate. That's a spiritual debate. If you wanted proof that there is evil in the world or spiritual blindness, there you go. We're there. I really do believe this. So again, if I'm turning you off, just turn off my channel, okay? That's fine, because the tragedy of this week is that a young man, which is really amazing, was saying, hey, you know what? Our country is going in the wrong direction. Our young people are being manipulated terribly, horribly by a media, by college professors that hate America, that hate everything we stand for, and their lives are going to be ruined. And he came in, and all the young men and women have come forward to say how Charlie has saved their lives and changed their minds and got them on a successful road to a successful life and being a parent and having a relationship with God and loving your country again and wanting to serve. They couldn't stand that. And instead of the rest of us to just yell back and forth, Charlie actually tried to bring people together. And that's why he died. That's why he had to be silenced, because he was just too effective. And Erica Kirk, if you did not watch the memorial service and you think Christians and conservatives are all just horrible, evil people, maybe go to YouTube and watch the service. Now, I sat there all 5.5 hours of it. It was amazing to watch. It was historical. But one of the most powerful moments is when Erica, Charlie's widow, said through tears that she had forgiven Charlie's killer. Now, I kind of knew that she would, because the faith of those two, both of them, is amazing, and we are called to forgive. So I kind of knew at some point we would hear that from her. I wouldn't have believed that soon at his memorial. And she said that she did that not on an emotional level. She did that because Jesus forgave her. That's what Jesus does. But that's what Charlie would have wanted. He would have forgiven this kid. And I think it was her that said, ironically, and this is so ironic, his killer would end up being a young man, just like all the young men that he had such a burden for, to try to reach, to pull them out of just blind trust of government or dependence on government, and to be independent and be free thinking and to live their lives in a great way. That was the young man that took his life. And I thought about that, and it was Tucker Carlson. I think it was Tucker Carlson that said, he has this little hate portion in his heart. And that was such an honest statement, because so do I. I mean, there's just a few people, I couldn't do what Erica did. It's not in me yet. Maybe I'll get there someday, but it's not in me. But there was something a theme that Charlie shared, was that he believed in liberty and freedom, and that if you bring that back far enough, where does liberty and freedom come from? Well, it comes from believing that the rights of the individual come from God and not from government. And that's our Declaration of Independence declares that. And it's such a unique document saying that those rights are coming from God, because up to that point in history, it was just, well, the rights you get are what government gives you. And what was it? Benjamin Franklin was leaving, the building, and a woman asked him, do we have a republic? What type of government do we have? And Franklin responded, "Ma'am, you have a republic as long as you can keep it." And that how true that has become, that it's just tyranny always just seems to take it. If you're a student of history, you look at all the different civilizations and countries, the masses tend to lean toward being controlled by the government, and the government just gets bigger. And our government has gotten huge since the Civil War. I'm sure Abraham Lincoln would be horrified to see how big the federal government is now when he was trying to save the Union back then. States' rights almost don't exist anymore. But what Charlie was trying to say was that if those unalienable rights come from God, then you need to have a relationship with that God, that God matters. And he mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, God is mentioned 4 different times. And that's what our country and the freedom, the idea of freedom is built on, the fact there is a God that gives these rights. And John Adams would later write that they had created a government for a moral and religious people, because they were going to pretty much self-govern themselves. They had a moral compass from God and didn't need government telling them what was right and what was wrong. And boy, have we lost that spiritual compass, that compass telling us what was right and wrong. And so he shared his faith a lot on campus. I didn't realize as much because I'd watch his political stuff, but he was very bold, and it's something many of us, I think even J.D. Vance said, he's probably talked more about Jesus Christ in the last 2 weeks or a week or so than he has in his whole public life, as a politician. And Charlie was just very bold that way and comfortable sharing his faith. So I just wanted to give the story of my faith, and because, again, I really do believe I'm a conservative, and I believe in what I believe in because I do have a strong belief in God, and I do believe Scripture is God-breathed. I believe it's inerrant. It is the Word of God. So it is where we get our Constitution from, our Declaration of Independence. When you look at the original states, they all, if you look at their, what do you call their, I forget what you call their original, their charters, whatever, God is mentioned all through there. And that's where our laws, the Judeo-Christian society, comes from the 10 Commandments and from the Bible. So, but I think I mentioned earlier, and I grew up in a Catholic family. Again, no Bibles in the house. Went to church Easter and Christmas. Back in the days where at Easter, all the girls would have the Easter bonnets, and I'd have my little suit with my little clip-on tie and stuff. And as we got older, that stopped, and then that was pretty much the end. So I was pretty much a pretty ornery atheist by the time I hit 17, 18 years of age. Religion was just a way for a few men, especially men, to control the masses, and I didn't want to have any part of that. And I graduated high school, started traveling the country. I hitchhiked about 4,000 miles, I think, in the year 79 into 80, and met all kinds of people. And I started running into Christians, and they were Christians that were very different. Their message, they really knew their Bibles, and they would tell me stuff out of the Bible that I never knew. And of course, to me, the Bible was fairy tales, but of course I never read it, but I had an opinion about it. It was just this oppressive book that people actually believed was coming from God instead of a bunch of men writing it. And so I kept encountering these people, and some of them I was really rude to, and others I was a little better. I did meet this young lady when I was working in Yellowstone National Park, who eventually would become my wife of 43 years ongoing now. She was a brand new Christian, and she tried sharing her faith with me, and I pretty much just shot her down. And then she went off back to college, finished college. I went into the military. And in basic training, there was this young man named O'Brien. We didn't use first names in basic training, just this kid O'Brien. And somehow, because he would always be spewing out Bible verses all the time and praying at meals and things like that. So, of course, I had to harass him and stuff. And he would just whatever I asked him, evolution. Why do we need God? We have evolution. I was big into evolution. Thought it was fascinating. And I just hit him with all this stuff, and he would just hit me with Bible verses. And let me tell you what: if you are a Bible believing Christian and you just hit people with Bible verses, it's the most annoying, aggravating thing in the world. Now, God must have been using it to be honest, but oh, he just made me so angry. Could you just think for yourself instead of thinking out of that book? And it used to drive me nuts. And so then I went off to jump school, went through parachute training, all that. I get to Fort Bragg. I walk into where my bunk is, and on my bunk is a little card with a cross, and it says "I am a Christian" on it. It had this poem, and I still have it today. And I turned around to the guy, my roommate, and I threw it at him, and I said, "I'm not interested in your God, blah blah blah." And he says, "Hey, dude." No, he didn't. He wouldn't have said "dude." This was back in the '80s, so we didn't use "dude." Hey, man. um, I'm a Buddhist, so I don't know where that came from. It's not mine. So little things like that were happening, and I kept running into people. And then one night, it was around dinner time or after dinner, and we weren't training or anything. And I went for a walk at Fort Bragg, walking down the street. If somebody had stopped me then and said, "Where are you going?" I would have said, "I'm just going for a walk. I'm not going anywhere." But I know now, thinking back, I was looking for where the chaplain's office was. Don't know why, but I was. And again, when I found it and got up to there, was a white cinder block building, nothing fancy. I think it had blue trim, if I remember correct. And I walked up to the building. If you had stopped me right there and said, "Hey, private front, where are you going?" Just nowhere, just walking around. "Hey, do you believe in God?" I would have said, "Absolutely not. That's the most ridiculous thing, blah, 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 blah." And that I really do believe that at that moment. I opened the door, decided to walk in, and I'm hearing Amazing Grace playing. Now, growing up Catholic in a really almost non-Catholic home, never heard Amazing Grace, and if I did, I sure didn't hear the words. And I started listening to the words, and those of you that know the words from Amazing Grace, it just was overwhelming. And I realized everything that had happened up in my life up to the point, all the people I'd run into, all the things I'd been through. At that point, I realized that song was talking about me. I was that wretch, and I think my eyes were open, my heart was open, whatever. Um, and I just knew I was done fighting. And I guess I didn't know I had been fighting God all along. I just thought I was being smart and intelligent, and I wasn't going to succumb to the stupidity of those religious people. And I had met enough religious people that were just awful people. I didn't want to be like them anyway. So again, I had lots of reasons to not want to believe in this God. Why? Because I didn't believe in the humanity that he had created, because they were pretty pathetic. So I'm hearing this song, and there's about 5 paratroopers, all in camo, standing there, and I could tell the chaplain was there leading the song, and the chaplain's wife was playing the piano. And I just knew that was my moment of realizing that Jesus had died for me, and I needed a savior, and he was it, and he was calling me. I mean, I really felt it wasn't me choosing him, because I had fought him all the way, but it was more me giving up and finally accepting the free gift of salvation that he offered me. And of course, I knew nothing at this point. I'm just like, so of course I had a lot to learn. And so fast forward, I ended up marrying that girl, that Christian girl, and we now have 3 grown sons. My oldest is going to celebrate his 40th birthday in a couple days, and we have 8 grandkids. And it's been quite a wild ride over those years. And I will tell you that I became just devouring the Bible. I just want to learn everything about it. I'm one of these people, and it's the reason that kept me from God. I don't want to be wrong. And all these people running around, spewing their religion and their way of looking at religion and their view of the Bible and all this other stuff. So to me, it was so confusing. It was like, I can't figure this out, and I'm going to end up being wrong, so I'm just not going to deal with it. But we started going to church, had a great pastor that helped me, and I started studying how to really study Scripture and understand it. And that's when people would come to the front door, and the different groups, you know who they are, some in the white shirts and ties, others, with their little Watchtower magazines, whatever. And they had a total different approach. They had a different message. And so that was really key to me, because that forced me to really study to figure out, what does the Bible really say? And should I believe these other organizations and these other people out there saying different things? And that really made my faith grow. I ended up becoming a Bible teacher and leading small group studies. Sometimes we had up to 30 people in our group. We were called New Beginnings. And it was wonderful. We did that for a number of years. And that's kind of where I learned, not the hard way, but I learned it was so important to not bring your own opinion to Scripture, but to let Scripture speak for itself. And I think I applied that to my pet food research too. That don't let your opinion from Hills or anywhere else. Really just look at the evidence. And probably my favorite topic to deal with once I was a Christian was, well, what about this evolution idea here? I was sold on evolution completely. So of course, being passionate about it, I had here's what the Bible says, here's evolution. Like many Christians, I'll just mix them together and it'll be fine. I couldn't do that. It doesn't work. The more you study it, either Scripture's right or evolution's right. So I just went into looking at creation versus evolution. And now I can just tell you, and again, I'm sure I'm going to alienate tons of people here, but I believe evolution is the biggest lie humanity has ever had to suffer through. I think it's a joke. I think it's ridiculous. I think there must be spiritual blindness in the world that allows us to reject God so blatantly that we will accept the most ridiculous, unproven things, that everything came from nothing, and that there's this, slow transition of one-celled bacteria into human beings. And when you start looking at the complexity, and then you look at the fossil record, I could go on and on, because it is one of my favorite topics, so I won't. I would just tell you, please Google this stuff, creation, evolution. Look at the debate, be open-minded, look for evidence. Even if you say, I'm still not going to accept the God of the Bible, you can get to a point where you say, okay, there must be a creator, because there's no way this stuff just happened. It's so illogical, it's so unscientific, it's so anti-biological. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And so anyway, it's one of my passions that I'm not going to get into on this channel. But anyway, that's how I got to the point where I realized the Bible was true. And in 2020, our family went through a real extremely tough time, and there's times where Bible verses, them, and I could spew them all day long. I hate to use the word spew, but I could shoot them out there, on impulse to people. I had all the answers, and then you go through something so horrendous and so awful that your life is turned upside down. Those Bible verses, now you almost sweat reading them, and you have to decide they're real at a heart level, not just a head level, and you have to believe them to be true, those promises, especially Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. And there's many times in this life you're not going to get to find out what's the good that came from that awful thing that happened, and that's where faith comes in. And so we got through that. But again, speaking of Romans 8:28, you look at what happened this week, that horrendous event in Arizona, and then you watch that memorial service, and you watch the vigils all over the country, all over the world, and you realize this one young man, Charlie Kirk, opened up the windows. He opened up for people to see and dialogue to begin, and people are coming back to church. The week after he was killed, at our church, they had to set up 50 chairs in the lobby because the church was so full. South Korea, there was a video of at least hundreds of young men in South Korea with chanting "Charlie, Charlie" with signs "We are Charlie" in South Korea. So the message that to all these countries, to all these young people, you need to be free. You need to fight for your freedom. If you don't fight for it, it will be taken away. That's just the way governments are. And I think as Americans, we were so comfortable and lazy thinking that can never happen in America. Well, yes, it could happen anywhere because guess what? We have people here. We have people in power that are greedy and want more power. And there's evil in the world. And so it's not just America that Charlie Kirk woke up. I think he woke up the entire world, the freedom loving part of the world, that we want to be free. We need to think for ourselves. We need to be strong. We need to love our families again. We need to get back to God. I mean, when I see what's going on in our schools, oh my goodness, it's how did we ever get to this point? It's just awful. And Erica Kirk, she forgave the shooter during that memorial, and that's something I don't know that I could do. That's definitely the power of God in her life. But in a way, I guess I could see we could forgive him because he's a product of our culture now. He's a product of going to a college. He grew up, and now that I don't agree with Mormonism and all, but they're very conservative, they're very family oriented, very right and wrong oriented. So he grew up in a what most of us would call a normal, loving home. And within a short time, reaching that age of maturity and the world around him and the internet and the culture around him just was swept away by that and turned into the monster he turned into. But as a matter of fact, this young man, totally lost, a lost soul, caught up in the horrible culture we've allowed to happen in our country, he's a victim too. Now, I don't want to use that victim thing that gets thrown around for people with all kinds of excuses. He still needs to face the consequences of what he did. But I think we all need to feel a little guilty that, especially as conservatives, we've allowed the media to lie to us. We've allowed our colleges. We knew this for years that they were, manipulating our children and turning them into liberals and America hating, hate your parents, all this other stuff. The whole trans thing, we let that happen. We let our daughters and granddaughters have to compete with men, and we had medical doctors at hearings in Congress telling the world that men can have babies. I mean, we allowed all this to happen, and then we see the violence that comes from it from these confused kids, poor kids that don't know whether they're male or female, and they have people in authority telling them, well, you get to choose. We won't, if you want to wear a dress, you can wear a dress. There were schools where the children were saying they were cats, and the teachers had to put a litter box in the classroom. How did we get there? Don't tell me it's not spiritual. There's no logical reason for this stuff. And I believe Charlie's death, his martyrdom, is really a spiritual revival. Again, if you haven't, especially if you're a Christian, if you haven't watched the memorial service, take the time. It's on YouTube, and go through and watch it. It was an amazing day, and I pray it really is at the turning point, just like Charlie's organization, the turning point for America. But let's not be yelling at the other side or screaming at them or whatever. Let's try to have a dialogue and really discuss things and see, how do we make families strong again? How do we make our education system strong again? How do we be a sovereign nation again with secure borders? President Trump has done that, but that should be a no-brainer. Why are we arguing over that? Why are we arguing over taking illegal aliens that have done some of the most heinous crimes in our country and trying to get them out of here, and we're fighting over that? For those of you, the Democrats, I don't understand. I will never understand how you can support a Democrat anymore. They're not the Democrats of my childhood, when my Democrat Uncle Bob or my mom would argue with my Uncle Tony and a few of the other folks. No, that Democratic Party is long gone and buried, and this new one is just horrendous and horrible for our children. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to post this or not, to be honest. It's probably really long. Maybe I'll edit some out. I don't know, but I just feel the week that I've watched, I feel, I have a little voice, not a very big voice, but maybe I'll reach a few of you out there that are kindred spirits like me. We need to be more bold, but we need to be like Charlie. We need to voice our opinion. We need to stand for what we believe in. That's hard to do, but the real hard part is to do it in a loving and respectful way. I'm going to have to really work on that, but because of Charlie, I'm really going to give it a shot. I'm really going to do my best to do that. And it's going to take God's help for sure to get me there. But I hope you will do the same. And I know many of you are my age. So you've got grown kids, you've got grandkids. Eric, I think it was Eric, or I forget who said it, but we have a responsibility to them. To give them a spiritual foundation, to give them a relationship with God. Nothing's better than that. Nothing's more important than that. But also a free country where they have the freedom to be all they want to be and to live the lives they want to live. And we're losing that if we don't do something soon. I think this is a start. We're turning it around. We got to keep it going. So if I have offended you in any way, I want to say I'm not sorry, but it's okay to be offended. I don't get offended very much. I just take things and decide it's right or wrong or error or whatever. Don't take it personally. There are many people like me out there. Decide how to dialogue with me and those people around you that think and feel the way I do, because that's just going to make it a better country. We're going to come together and figure some things out and just be a better, stronger country for it. So if you are still here, I appreciate it. And if you want to put something in the comments, I don't want to get into a big debate, but if you did make it to the end, I would love for you to tell me you did. I would really be surprised, but I do appreciate it. So you all take care. God bless. God bless America. Everybody loves saying that, but I truly believe it. We gotta get back there. God shouldn't be blessing a country that mocks him and turns away from him. But if we turn back with his mercy, I'm sure he will restore this great nation again. So you all take care. Bye-bye.